Hello and welcome to the TC Exchange podcast. I'm Amity Kraus, ex-retail girl turned realtor turned business owner, where I teach new transaction coordinators how to navigate the complex real estate industry and coach experienced TCs how to level up their game and businesses to add even more value to their agents. Come along with me while I guide you through this intense, complicated, but always fun world of transaction coordination. Hello and welcome everybody to the TC Exchange podcast. My name is Amity Kraus and I am your host. And today we are continuing on with our Rookie to Pro series with Amanda Charette from A Plus Transaction Services. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. I am so excited that you're here today, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. I'm really excited to hear about your journey as a transaction coordinator in your business and what you have going on and what's coming next for you. So why don't we go ahead and get started? Can you share a little bit about your background and how you got started with real estate transaction coordination?
Of course. Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure and I'm glad to be on the show. So, a little about me. I kind of bounced into real estate almost straight out of high school inadvertently. It wasn't really my long-term plan. It just worked at the time and it kind of stuck with me. And from there, I landed a job that, unbeknownst to me at the time, would be like a big career move for me. I applied for a job with one of the top producers in my state and they hired me. And from there, it was just a whirlwind of basically, I feel like I went to college and got a master's degree in real estate in my area because the agent that I was working for does everything under the sun, commercial, residential, leases, tri-state area where I am, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and will sell anything that can sign a piece of paper. So from there, I learned from the foundation all the way up to the top. And I was doing all the behind the scenes stuff, the transaction coordinating and managing the office just in general, as far as, scheduling showings, scheduling smoke inspections, appointments. And that's where my foundation started. I worked there for a long time and gained, the knowledge I gained is just, I can't compare it to anything else I've ever done. And then that person decided to move on and open up their own brokerage. And I felt it might be time for me to move on and try something different because I had already I felt like I maximized my potential there. And then I decided to become a mortgage lender. I went to school and got licensed to become a mortgage lender. So I'm licensed in Rhode Island, Mass, and Connecticut. I went on my own and did that. And it was great because I started that in 2020 and people were buying houses because there was very low interest rates and a lot of demand. So my first year was amazing. And then from there, it kind of dwindled down a little bit, quieted down in mortgages. And for me, I also realized I don't know if that was the right choice for me looking back. I really liked the real estate side. So I ended up transaction coordinating on the side privately for agents that knew me as just a way to bring in extra income, just like a little side hustle going on while I was a lender. And then about a year and a half, 2 years ago, my the mortgage lending business, as you know, the Fed kept raising interest rates and raising them and raising them and raising them and raising them. And that prevented me from doing any sort of business that would make me money. And on top of that, I wasn't sure that I loved lending. And a coworker of mine actually said, "Hey, Amanda, like, you already know what you're doing." And that person kept pressuring me, like, "Hey, start this business. You'll make you'll make so many, customers. You'll have so many people that know you already from what you do." And what had happened was my branch manager at the mortgage company reduced my commission greatly, and it wasn't expected. So it forced me to start this business as a formal thing. I wasn't ready at all. I was actually petrified. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm scared. I'm not ready for this. I'm not going to make any money. And like, I was to tears almost, but I almost was like, I had no choice at that point. And now here I am going into my second year of owning this business. And I am just beyond grateful for what I did and taking that step and jumping and doing it, because now I have a very successful business. It's growing. I have a lot of customers. I have great, reputation where I am, and word of mouth gets around. That's how I get my customers. And just taking that leap of faith, even though I wasn't ready, it was probably the best decision I made recently in my career, for sure.
Yeah. I love that. I think that if we ever sit down and try and plan it for just when we're ready, we're never going to get there. Like
Yep,
it's
definitely.
do it messy. If you want
Yep.
to do it messy, and you'll get through. And I think it's so interesting to your story, in that, being a transaction coordinator, shifting into the mortgage world, because there is a lot of crossover and there is a lot of connection that happens between the two sides, and how it still kept you in transaction coordination, and then be able to come back to it after, a difficult decision, right? And a kind of not necessarily your choice, but we're glad that you're back, and it sounds amazing that you are having such great success going on.
Yeah, I actually just hired someone to help me. Um,
Great.
I was a little nervous about doing that too. This person is someone I worked with before doing transaction coordinating. We've worked together. So I felt comfortable to bring her on because I've seen that person work before.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm growing a lot, and I don't want to lose the quality of my transactions because I have too many.
Mhm.
Because I kind of provide a little bit more of like a white glove service, I would say, where I don't like to send out automated emails that go out at 9 a.m. and there's 57 emails about an appraisal going out to everyone. I like my stuff to be like handheld, and
Mhm.
people to know that I know what's going on in the transaction, and this isn't just a computerized message coming out to you at a certain time. I don't like that. And I think that's also how I'm able to retain a lot of the top producers in my area, and by word of mouth get other customers, because I I hand type all my emails. I'm
Mhm.
not sending out, big massive blasts of emails, and I take the time to understand the transaction and the players in it, so that way the agent feels supported. I know what I'm doing, and the people involved in the transaction can trust in me that they also can be confident that they know what I'm doing as well. So I have systems that I use that have automation options, and I haven't visited those yet. I don't want to. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about, in your early career, when you first got started, what were some of the biggest challenges that you faced?
When I first got started, I would say some of the biggest challenges I faced in the beginning were I really felt like struggling with, do I want to be an agent? Working and doing the transaction coordinating, and in a sense, a lot of transaction coordinators might say, I'm doing your job, and like you feel this sense of like, well, I'm only making X amount of money and this person's making Y amount of money, but I'm doing all the work. And I think for a long time that was a struggle for me to get over. There's a role for everyone in real estate, and I took me a long time to get over the hurdle of like a sense of, almost like a sense of entitlement. Like, hey, I'm doing everything and you're making more money than me. But now, like, more, I look at myself more as like a support role for that agent, and they can come to me, they find me valuable, they know I have knowledge, they ask me questions about the transaction, ask me advice. And I think I'm just a better fit for that
Mhm.
than being out in the field. Like, being a realtor is a big sales thing, and I am not good at sales. I can't sell anything. And so I think being in the background and doing the technical stuff is much better for me. And as far as any other struggle goes, I think I don't know that I have a major struggle that I went through at the beginning. It was more of just, you know, earning my way, earning my reputation, and people, um, understanding that I know what I'm doing and I'm talking about. And it takes a long time to build that reputation. And that was probably one of the biggest struggles for me, because I live in a state where everybody knows you. It's a very small state. Um, People know what you're doing and they know what you're not doing, and they talk about that. So just earning a reputation for myself was probably a hard struggle.
Yeah. Well, there's so one thing I want to say is that you don't feel like a salesperson. I think that what I really admire about what you've built, though, is that you've built your reputation, you've built that on word of mouth.
Yeah.
And while what you've done may not feel like traditional selling
Mhm.
or putting yourself out there in that way, because you have built such a strong reputation and created such great relationships with agents in your market, that is a form of selling that if it's maybe a little bit more passive, but it's very valuable and it's leading to success. And I think that's one of the things that we struggle with, right? As maybe a little bit more introverted people or extroverted introverts, those sort of
Mhm. Mhm.
things, is that we say that selling has to fall into this box where you're sending out your emails to your email list, you're going on social media, you're going to this marketing event, you're always like asking for the sale and doing that. It doesn't have to be that way. And I think what you have done really demonstrates that, because selling at the end of the day is about relationships, and you clearly created something where that really works. So excellent work.
Definitely about relationships. Um, I respect everybody I work with. I email people in a very, respectful tone, cordial. I think that plays a super important role, because I want to be happy with what I do and I want to enjoy what I do. I don't want to wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh God, this again. I want to wake up in the morning and be like, thank God I have this career that I love, that I'm able to do, and I enjoy it. So I like to treat people with respect and kindness, and I expect the same from them, because we all just want to get this person to closing and it's a smooth deal and there's no issue. So I think I really make it a priority to be respectful to people, regardless of the situation and regardless of who they are in the transaction, because they will show up at some point again, and I will have to work with that person at some point again. So I want everybody to be like, oh, Amanda, yeah, I've worked with her. She's great. I have no issue working with her. She's a pleasure to work with, and I know we'll get this done smoothly. That's what I want when people hear my name.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely.
That's a
Absolutely.
priority for me. Priority. That's number one priority.
So tell me about your first major success that you feel that you experienced as a TC.
Yeah, I do have that. That was recent. So I started my transaction coordination company October to October. So this past October would have been the first year. My first major success probably came literally right my first year mark, because before then I was working with agents that knew me just from word of mouth, had heard of me, and people passed my name on. And I decided to go back to school at that time as well. So I decided I'm going to go back to school and do my business. So in September, I returned to school full time, and I'm working on obtaining my bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. And I had already committed, got financial aid, signed up for my classes, did everything, had my schedule. And literally, I was a full-time student. I started full-time classes and doing my business, which was manageable. And then, not even a week after like the first semester started, I got a phone call from someone that I wasn't expecting. And it's the top brokerage in my state. That person called me and said, hey, do you know who this is? And I said, yes, I very much do. And they were interested in having me transaction coordinate for their entire brokerage, which is about 20 agents. And I asked him how he heard about me, and he said, someone just mentioned my name and he thought it would be worth it to give me a call and see what I have to offer. So I was very shocked to hear this because I really want to organically grow my business and not pay for leads or people or pay them to work with me or whatever. So to have the top brokerage in the state see me and call me and reach out to me was a lot to take in because I had just started school full time. And I'm like, I don't know how I can actually take this person on, but I can't say that to them. So I'm like, yes, I'll meet with you. Come to your office. So I went to their office, and lucky for me, I'm a pretty organized person. Obviously, you have to be in this job. So I have like a presentation, I have a brochure, I have all these little pamphlets about my business and what I do, which were already prepared that I have shared with others. So I gave a little spiel, and really this was my first time selling myself to someone. And I was very nervous because I've never had to sell myself to someone, but I kept in the back of my mind like, hey, these people called me and they're interested in me and my business. So I already have like a little bit of leverage. Anyway, long story short, I went in, I gave my spiel, we had a conversation, and I landed that client, and it's the biggest brokerage in my state. So that's my most major accomplishment so far, by far, with my company, and I'm super proud of it. And it's been going really well, and that's part of the reason why I hired someone else, was to help me be more efficient with that brokerage.
Yeah.
So that's my first major win.
Yeah, well, what a win.
Yeah.
What a win. That's
Definitely.
amazing. That's
Yep.
amazing. And that you're exactly right. When you have somebody reach out to you, you do have some leverage there. You have received recognition, and you deserve to be there. And that's really important to remember. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's
Thank you
wonderful.
so much. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned an essential skill of a TC, the organization.
Mhm.
What other organization skill, or what other skills do you think are essential for a rookie TC?
Definitely communication and honesty are really important, I think, as well. And you have to be someone that can multitask. And I don't mean like three things at once. I mean like 103 things at once. You have to remember what's going on with this, how to reach out on this one, what's going on here. You get into this like mode where I may not remember every address or name or client, but I can in my mind visualize what's going on with my files and what needs to be addressed that day, what's a priority. So you have to be able to, as a rookie, learn how to prioritize what is more important over something else.
Mhm.
And that's an everyday thing, because you may wake up and say, hey, I'm doing A, B, and C today, but then priorities take over and A, B, and C are not even happening today. That you have to be able to, on a whim, change what you're doing and take a left turn. Then you might have to take a right turn. Then you might have to stop. And then you have to revisit what you were started. So being like, I wouldn't even say being organized is important, because if you're not organized, I don't know how you could possibly be a transaction coordinator. It has to be like in something in your blood. Like you can't just be organized in this job and then outside of here, you're a different person. This, for me, I think I dream about real estate in my sleep. I dream about my transactions, and just being honest with the agents as well is super important. Like if you make a mistake on something, or you miss a date, or you overlooked a contingency, or something happened that should have been addressed and now it's a week later and you're like looking back like, I forgot this. Don't let that go. Like if it's something that the agent needs to be made aware of, you have to swallow your pride and be like, hey, I messed this up. How do we address this? Because ultimately, the agents are on the road, they're driving, they're not in front of a computer, and that's why they're paying us for this service, to support them and make sure that the guidelines and the contingencies are being followed. So I feel like a personal responsibility with every transaction I have, that it's my responsibility to make sure these dates and contingencies are met. And lucky for me, I've never missed one ever. And if I did, I would be so absolutely petrified to call my agent and tell them. So I would say organization, multitasking on like a level of probably a level no one's even tried or attempted. This is a very difficult and demanding job. And one other thing about the agents that you work with is sometimes they forget that you may transaction coordinate for a lot of people. And that happens to me. And they reach out to me and they're like, hey, Amanda, can you do this now? And I'm like, yeah, but 7 other people just asked me to do something now too. So learning how to prioritize what's asked of you over something else that someone may have asked is super important, super important.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I really agree with you about the honesty and being honest and fessing up when something
Yep.
doesn't go right. Uh, I think that I really feel strongly in when I've come into a situation, whether of myself or my team, or when I hear the stories that, everybody makes mistakes. And
Mhm.
when we're in it, this is not the time to be worried about pointing a finger. We want to solve the problem. But at the end, now, okay, we've gotten through the problem is solved. Then we need to sit down and say, okay, what
How
did
can
we
this not
do?
happen again?
Yes, what do we need to do to get it to not happen again? And I think that's so important. I feel like a lot of people, TCs who may have made the mistake, agents on the other side, they're worried about pointing fingers and placing blame. And it's not about that. It's finding, accepting that things happen and then finding the solution and working through it. And it doesn't have to, nobody has to be a jerk. Nobody has to make anybody cry. We can be scared. We can be scared. I mean, I remember the first time I made a major mistake. I made my first major mistake, I will confess, is that I was reviewing a settlement statement for an
Mhm.
agent,
Mhm.
and there was a seller credit that was missing
Mhm.
on the settlement statement, and we closed
Mhm.
without the seller credit and we didn't realize it until the end. Everything had been
Mhm.
dispersed, everything recorded, settled, the whole thing. And I flipped out. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to pay this myself,
Oh yeah.
all of those, all the, I'm like, thank goodness I have, like all of these things. And we worked through it and we solved it.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
we put steps and checklists and in the checklist in place to make sure that things like that don't happen. It happens to everybody. Um, and being kind to each other when it happens and finding the solution is absolutely crucial. Good.
Yeah, definitely. Because like I said, where I am is a very small state. There's only a few title and settlement companies and lenders that are on like a big rotation, and they do come back around like the Ferris wheel again. You will work with those people again. They will remember their experiences with you. And I don't want anyone to see my name and be like, I'm not working with her. I don't want to work with her at all. Never, never.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So when you first got started in your initial learning curve, coming from a business where you didn't know anything about transaction coordination, you got into real estate. What were some of the biggest fears you had about learning and getting started, and fears and uncertainties, that kind of thing?
So when I first started in real estate, or when I started my business?
Both, when
Okay.
you,
When
yeah,
I
yeah.
when I first started, I wouldn't say I was scared because I was young. I mean, I started very young. I was like 19, 20. I definitely wasn't scared. I was more of like, do I like this job? Is this what I want to do? And the person I worked for was extremely difficult to work for, almost torturous. I mean, there was days I left crying. I called my boyfriend from work or my mom, and I'm like, I hate this job. I don't want to work here. I can't, how can I be crying at my job? It was extremely difficult work environment. And that's the place I had worked for 8 years. But over time, I developed like a little bit of like a desensitized to it. But looking back now, like the what happened at that job was the most the biggest career and like professional growth I've ever had in my life. So I'm not saying it was, what I've gone through was worth it, but things changed and I changed over time, and the person I was working with changed over time, and we developed a great relationship. And even up to now, we have an excellent relationship. And I wouldn't say I was fearful of anything because I didn't really think I wanted to work in real estate. It just happened. And then I just grew from there, and I knew I could do something more with what I knew.
Mhm.
And that's why I started my business. And like when I started my business, I was absolutely petrified. I'm like, I'm not going to make any money. How are people going to want to work with me? How am I going to make enough money? what if they don't like me and then they fire me and I have no one to work for? And, what if I do something bad and then they talk about me? So when I started my business, yes, I was absolutely petrified. I did cry. And I'm like, I don't know if this is right for me. Should I get another job? And people are like, oh, just get a backup. But then you hear that, like, what is it? Like, if you want to own the island, burn the boats or something. So, like, go all in, basically. Don't have a secondary outlet. And that's the route I took. I'm like, I'm doing this. This is going to work or it's not. There's no plan B. And so that's some of the struggles I went through with starting my business and working in that career in the beginning.
I love your tenacity. I love that. And I love that phrase. I love that. I haven't heard that before. If you want to own the island, burn the boats.
Yeah.
I love
Something
it.
similar to that. Yes.
Something like that. Okay. Well, I'm gonna look that up because I might steal it.
Go ahead.
All right. So, so tell me about mentorship, and how that has been influential in your career. Have you had a mentor? If you knew a new TC that was getting started, what would you tell them about finding a mentor?
So, as far as mentors for me, I definitely feel like working in real estate, most people you work with have a very entrepreneurial mindset where they're like, yeah, we can own a plumbing company. Sure, let's start one. We need a contractor on this job. We're going to start a plumbing company. So there's this mindset of like self-employment. There's this mindset of ownership. There's this mindset of growth. And those are the people that I was surrounded with in real estate. Lucky for me, I was working with, people who are private lenders, people who are real estate investors and own multiple properties of their own. They credit repair type of people that want to own businesses and LLCs and better themselves. And when you're surrounded by people who are in like a growth mindset, they foster that on you, where you're like, well, if they can do it, so can I. If this person can do this, so can I. And you learn from their mistakes and what they say about their experiences. And then being around those people, they also just puts that mentality on you, like, I can do this too, So being surrounded by the right people is super important, and going to events, getting to know people in the field, knowing their successes and their failures and learning from them is probably one of the biggest personal takeaways for me. I never want to be the smartest person in the room. I want to be the one who's learning from everybody in the room. And I love going into a room and it's real estate related and I'm like, what? I didn't know that. I didn't know this. I wasn't aware of that, because you're forever learning. So for a new TC to be starting, I would say definitely, like, a lot of people make the mistake of, oh, I'm going to go it alone. I don't want my competition to know what I'm doing, or like, I don't know that that's the right mindset. I think you really do need to meet with people in the field, learn from them, have them guide you, and take their advice and how you can apply it to what you've done. So that's what I've done, where the place I worked, they had a transaction coordination company there. They hired a third party, then they brought it in-house. Both of them failed miserably, but that wasn't a part of my experience. But I learned from those things of, okay, this is how this transaction coordination company did it. I'm definitely not doing this, but I'll take away this from what they did. Or so seeing how those things play out and then applying what worked and didn't work when you're doing it, I think is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. There are so many different experiences that we all have as business owners, as transaction coordinators, and I really believe strongly that collaboration and learning from other people and understanding what other people are going through and what they have the experiences they've had, and being willing to share that is it's so wonderful to get into the rooms where those happen. To share that information. That's wonderful. That's great advice.
Yeah. And not afraid to ask questions, hey, what worked for you? What didn't? And I think just seeing that third party transaction coordination company where I was working before, how it was set up, how they did certain things, what worked, what didn't work. If I didn't witness that, I wouldn't have had the right foundation for my company,
Yeah.
because I adopted a lot of things they did. And then I learned a lot of things that I shouldn't do. So I took that mindset into when I started my business. Hey, I'm doing this. I'm definitely not doing this. And applying those methods like set me up for success from day one. Because some transaction coordinators, I'm not knocking them, but they like to operate off like a Google spreadsheet or a notebook or notes in their head or whatever. Like that's not me. I can't do that. So even though when I started my business, I wasn't where I'm at today, I purchased a CRM from day one. And I'm like, I'm buying this. I'm using this because this is going to help me scale at some point in the future. And I'm not going to be operating off of Google spreadsheets. That's how I was able to take on that big brokerage in my state, literally in the same month, because I already had the systems in place to support me to take something like that on. So it's important to set yourself up for success. So when the opportunity does arise, you're ready to take it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking, knowing today where you want to go and put those plans into place so that you can get there. That's
Yep.
great.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
So you obviously, you started pre-COVID, right? So we have definitely experienced some major changes in the market since the insanity of 21 with the housing market exploding with the record low interest rates, and now last year where they were really higher than many of us had seen in a long time. So you've experienced sort of the evolving nature of real estate. So how do you stay as a transaction coordinator, business owner? How do you make sure that you're staying updated and you're adjusting to changes in laws and technology? That's insane. The things that are coming out lately, market trends. How are you adjusting and staying ahead of those things?
For me, I think one of the biggest pluses I have is the people I work for do a variety of transactions. There's commercial, there's residential, there's leases, there's 20 units, or they're buying a factory, or they could be purchasing a mobile home or an estate sale or probate. So, and in several states. So I think for me, I'm lucky because I'm exposed to a lot of different types of transactions at any given time, all the time. So I think for me to stay relevant and stay knowledgeable, it's important for me to continue to be involved in transactions like that. And lucky for me, all the agents that I work with are involved in such a great array of transactions that I'm able to keep my knowledge up on what's going on in the state of Connecticut. I'm able to keep my knowledge on the changes that are happening in Rhode Island, and the same in Massachusetts. And most of the time, the agents themselves are not even aware of the changes. I'm the one bringing it to their attention because I have already seen it or witnessed it. And they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And just guiding them in the right direction. Like, hey, last month, such and such happened with this. I don't think we should do it this way moving forward. So providing, I think for me to stay ahead of the curve, and stay, center, I provide a lot of value to the agents I work with as far as my knowledge and supporting them and staying knowledgeable in their field as well. Because even though they all do a variety of things, that's not all as like one cohesive team. So someone might just do a lot of single family sales, but someone else I know does a lot of, mobile home purchases. So I'm able to take that knowledge and pass it on to this other person when they have a transaction in that situation, because I've already been through it. And I think for me, that's the biggest value add for me is I'm almost like a mentor for some of these agents. I've been doing this for longer than a lot of the agents I work with. And, I don't know that they like to ask other realtors questions, because sometimes the other realtors are like, oh, you don't know the answer to this. And me, I'm not that person. I'm a support role for that agent. And I'm not like, oh, this person called me and asked me about this today. They can discreetly trust that I'm working in their best interest and I have the knowledge to support them. So for me, keeping the variety of transactions I have and working for the type of agents I work for, I think just works in my favor, fortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of people forget, as transaction coordinators, especially independent ones, we see a massive amount of transactions with a huge variety of
Yes.
circumstances that we learn from every single time. And we put a system in place to prevent something weird happening,
Mhm.
in the future, and we've already got a plan for it or a contingency for it. And so there's a lot of knowledge to share with our
Yes.
agents. Years ago, when I first got started, I remember talking to someone he was kind of a leader in the real estate market that I was in at the time. Did
Mhm.
a lot of trainings, and I remember him saying something really negative about transaction coordinators and how like they're know-it-alls. And I thought, my goodness, sir, we have seen some of these transaction coordinators have done 100 transactions for every one single family home that you have sold.
Correct.
There is value in the things that we've seen and the knowledge that we can share. It's not
Yeah.
just pushing paper.
Correct. I mean, when they say the majority of agents sell less than like 4 homes a year or something in their
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
So I'm already well over 200 since I started my business. And before that, I was already up to about 4,000. So I mean, I wake up every day and say I've never seen that before, but I don't know how many more days I can keep saying that because I've
Right.
seen so much. And then I'm like, well, I've never seen that before. So the
Yeah.
knowledge just keeps compiling and adding on and on and on. And I love getting in a situation and I'm like, I know what to do here. I
Mhm.
actually do because I've been in this situation already. I love being able to provide that support to the agents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And being able to say, okay, I've seen it happen like this before. I think this solution is going to work for us
Yep.
in this situation. That's
Yep.
great.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So technology, how has you mentioned a CRM,
Yes.
how has technology impacted your role as a transaction coordinator? And are there any specific tools or software that you would do recommend?
So I am not big on like the G Suite, Google Calendar, integration, whatever. I that's just not for me. I'm not good with it. I don't like it. It confuses me. So for me, I purchased this CRM and it's called TC Docs.
Mhm.
So I used to work in a different CRM. I think it was, what is it, TC Workflow? I think now it's called Open to Close or something.
Mhm.
And then there was another one I was working in. I don't remember what that one was called. But um, I also have a membership to Dotloop, which is required. And I'm actually a member of the Dotloop Teams account, which is something they rolled out, I believe, in the last year or so. So a lot of transaction coordinators I see on like social media are always asking questions about, hey, how can I log into my agent's Dotloop and make it easy? And how can I do this? And then it's the Teams. You have to pay for a Teams account because with the Teams account, you can toggle between as many agents as you're paying for account without using their login. You don't need a verification code. You don't need to text them. So that's the type of account I have with Dotloop. It is pretty expensive. It's my biggest expense of the month, but it's invaluable to
Mhm.
me because I am not going to be texting people and logging in and out of there. I work for, I think I'm up to like 50 agents right now. I am not logging in and out of 50 different Dotloop accounts and getting codes. That I don't have time for that. And also you have access to the state documents for your state if you sign up for the Teams account, because you could circumvent that by then downloading documents and filling them in, but that's not not an effective way to manage your time. You just
Right.
have to bite the bullet, pay for the subscription. Yes, it's my biggest expense, but it's 2 transactions a month. I'm
Mhm.
losing 2 transactions a month, you
Mhm.
know? And then the TC Docs program, some people like it, some don't. It's much more of like it doesn't have the bells and whistles that probably like I believe A-Frame does. Um, I like TC Docs because it was made by a transaction coordinator for transaction coordinators. They're local, they're US based. When you pick up the phone and call them, the owner answers the phone to help you, whatever problem you have. And they're very affordable. So you can do automation through there. It does synchronize with like your Dotloop and your Gmail calendar. You can put templates in there. I don't use any of that. I just set up my transactions and go. I'm a very like minimalist when it comes to my work environment. Like the least amount of things I need to use, the better for me. So I don't write anything down. Um, and when I train people, I tell them the same thing. Like, I know you want to go back and write a sticky note and say, I'm going to come back later and do this. And like, I don't think that's an efficient way to operate. I have totally given up pen and paper, and everything for me is electronic because I just think it's effective and you can bring it with you anywhere you go and it can be updated and changed. And when you update notes and stuff in TC docs, it's time stamped. So, and it doesn't go anywhere and it builds on to what you've done. So you can look back and you're not like looking in a notebook that you wrote of notes you took from 3 days ago to figure out what you did. So yeah, that's my spiel on it.
Yeah, I love TC Docs. I think it's a great platform and it's very easy to use. And
Yep.
the customer support is really top notch. I hear great feedback about it all of the time. There's a number of other platforms out there that are really strong, but TC Docs is one that comes up over and over again. And I like what you said about dot loop. I think that a lot of times, I wish the dot loop was available in every state. And there are some states that they, you know, like they dig in and they're like, we're not giving our documents to, we're not, Tennessee does not let you have dot loop have their documents. And so like we have to find a workaround all the time.
Oh, I
But
didn't know that.
yeah, it's but it dot loop is great. And if you have it in an area where it works efficiently, there is really I've seen a lot of different platforms out there and there really isn't anything that's quite like it. So and it makes it super easy. And that's a great tip. So for those of you that are working with dot loop, you're in an area that has a heavy dot loop usage, check out getting a Teams account
Yeah,
because it will definitely make your life a lot easier and not have to worry about logging in and out. I
yeah,
think we're so fortunate, really, you know, the overhead for our businesses, depending on what you have going on, the overhead doesn't have to be very, very high. I mean, we're fortunate in that we can be pretty mobile most of the time and do our work wherever we need to work from, including our phones. And you know, overhead in general is relatively low, and
yes.
spending the money on tools that will help you be more efficient and help you scale are going to be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Dot loop is my biggest one, but it's absolutely necessary. I wouldn't give it up
Yeah.
for sure. I would
Yeah.
totally recommend the Teams for people who are working with, more than 5 or 6 or maybe 10 agents. And plus we're working for them. So I don't think it's fair to be like, hey, can you text me this code that you're gonna get right now? And like they do that to me because some of their accounts are tied to my phone number and I'm annoyed by them doing it to me.
Right.
So I can't imagine by them me doing it to them all the time, every time I need to log in. It's just a necessary expense and I bit the bullet and I'm doing it. You
Yeah.
know, you can add and remove users at any time, whatever you need in blocks. Like you could do 1, you could do 5, you could do 10, you could do 20. And dot loop support is super helpful too.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I think it's been great. And I'm super familiar with the system. There's, what you can do with the documents, what you can't do, how you can
Yeah.
do the signing and everything. So,
Yeah. That's great. That's
yep.
great. So I'm not a big fan of the phrase work-life balance, but it is a reality and it's a term that everybody recognizes, you know, whether you want to call it that or something else. But tell me about, you know, you're a mom. Tell me how you are balancing the demands of your career and your family and all of the other things that you have going on. Tell me about that.
Oof. My laptop lives with me wherever I go. It's in my bag. And some people say, oh, I hate that. I can't be strapped to my computer all the time. That's not a life, blah, blah, blah. But the career I've made for myself allows me to do basically whatever I want, whenever I want. So if I need to bring my laptop with me to somewhere I'm going because I'm going somewhere at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the rest of the world is working, then I'm grateful for that. My daughter does competitive gymnastics. She travels around our area and she spends about 15 hours a week at practice. So, and it's at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon when most normal people are still working their job. So I'm able to take my work with me to go bring her to gymnastics. I can work while I'm there. When she travels for competitions, my laptop comes with me. I don't need to take time off work or ask if I can have Friday off to go take my daughter to her competition. Um, and the same, like, I'm also still a licensed mortgage lender, so I still do that, and I just take my computer with me. I'm in college full time. My laptop just comes with me to school. I take an hour or two to be in my class. All the agents I work for know that I'm in college, and I say, hey, from 10 to 11, whatever, I have class. After that, you can reach out to me, whatever. So for me, the work-life balance is probably the reason why I'm sticking with what I'm doing. It's, I like to be able to, if I want to take a Friday off and take my kids to the park, I can do that. If I want, to give them a day off of school and go to whatever, I don't need to ask anybody's permission. And just spending time with my kids is really important to me. And I think family is very important. And finding that balance is, it's important to everyone. Like my husband works full time. He's out of state. He's barely ever home. My mother-in-law lives with us, lucky me. So I have her help. But my kids know when I'm working. I mean, yeah, there's times where I take my laptop and I have to like lock myself in my closet in my bedroom because I'm like on a phone call and they're over there. I want French fries. I want a juice. Can I have a drink? Mom, I need to do my homework. And the cat, this. So I'm like, they know I'll just go run to my room, hide, lock myself in my room and get what I need to get done. So it's crazy, but I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have in the business I created for myself. And I think making the sacrifices where necessary are important for me because this balance works for me right now, being in school full time, being a mom of 4 and having a full-time business. Like I am petrified to go to like a 9 to 5 job. I don't know that I don't know if that's like a right fit for me at any point in my life now that I've gotten the taste of freedom. I'm like, I don't want to ask someone if I can come in a half hour late today. I don't want to call out for a doctor's appointment, And yeah, my work-life balance it became much more important to me than I ever thought it would by having this business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think I would move heaven and earth to never have to go and have a boss again.
Yep.
Not going to happen. We'll figure something out. Oh, so what advice would you give someone who's just getting started as a TC?
Yeah, definitely my people say, oh, you need real estate experience to do this job. And you don't give respect to the people that have it, you take away from them. I think if you want to, I think really the path I took to becoming a transaction coordinator, having my own business was really ideal. I think it is difficult for someone to just start being a transaction coordinator if they don't have any experience. It's not impossible, but they definitely need support from someone to show them what to do for an extended period of time. I would say like at least 3 to 6 months, because there's so many situations that you don't know until you know them. And the only way to learn those is by getting the volume under your belt. And I think starting on a team, maybe that needs an admin, maybe someone that, needs help in the office working on offers or contracts is really a good start for someone who wants to be a TC, because it's a super demanding job and it's very stressful at times because you have so many timelines and priorities to keep up with, and you have to decide if that's a right fit for you. It is a very high stress and demanding job, and it's not for everyone. So learning what's expected of you before you commit to it, I think is really important for someone. That would be my advice to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good advice. That's good advice. So where do you see the role of the TC evolving to in the future with the changes we're seeing in the industry?
Hopefully transaction coordinating doesn't get taken over by AI and computers. I'm hoping that the market, takes a little bit of a turn where agents have, a little bit more breathing room and they're able to get more, buyers or sellers under their belts, and they can afford to want a transaction coordinator, because agents are paying us for the service that they could do themselves. So you have to provide value somewhere in there where they're like, yeah, this is better than me doing it. And I don't know that maybe that's not something that technology could take over. But as far as what goes for me and just keeping the value, like, I want to keep my service more personalized and more human, where people can call me and talk to me. They're not going to get a voicemail. They don't have to text me. Like, you can pick up the phone and call me, and vice versa. I kind of thought about the other day, and I feel like people want to talk to people, maybe they don't want to talk to a computer. Maybe they have questions and they want to talk to a real person. And I think just staying in front of the agent, staying relevant, going to like networking events is really important. I don't love networking events, but just to show my face and people know who I am. Because like having your picture in your email, I think is really important, because people will see you and you might see them in public and they're like, oh, you're Amanda, the transaction coordinator, even though they never met you, but they see your picture every time you email them.
Mhm.
So little things like that, and just being like, yeah, that's me. But going to those events, going to like the seminars and stuff, you don't have to participate, but just being there, can build a relationship with people. So I think those are ways, to kind of stay, on top.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what parting piece of wisdom or encouragement would you like to share with our listeners that are looking to go from rookie to pro?
You can do it. Would be my first piece of advice. Stay the course, trust in yourself, set realistic expectations for yourself, and make sure, you have attainable goals that you can, hey, I reached this goal today. And I think the most important step for me is, a lot of times I get very overwhelmed when I look at the big picture of what I have going on in my life. If I just took a step back and compartmentalize everything I have, it's very overwhelming and almost impossible. So for anyone who's looking, to advance or level up, the way I'm able to like do everything I do is by small steps. I'm just looking at today. I'm just getting through this hour. I'm just setting up this transaction. And whatever happens after that, I'm going to find out when I'm done. I think staying on task and just being focused on the small steps gets you way farther than looking at the bigger picture. That's how I'm able to manage my day, manage the transactions I have without, feeling overwhelmed or lost or confused on what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing. And when I get to what I'm doing next, that's what I'm doing. And that's how I'm able to be where I'm at today, for sure.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So what's next for you for your business? What new?
Oh,
Yeah.
A lot. I have plans. I would like to start expanding a little bit farther out into New England. Right now, I'm kind of focused on the tri-state, Rhode Island, Mass, Connecticut. I want to start pushing into like New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine. I'm also working on some third-party support services to brokerages, where I'm training their admins in how to be a real estate admin. I've already done this before. I'm actually working with a brokerage on overseeing their in-house transaction coordinators, where they're just not up to par, respectfully, but they can get there with support. And that brokerage doesn't have what they need to support them. So they'll keep their in-house people, but they'll just be supervised by my company to make sure they're in compliance and what they're doing is good, so that they can continue to grow. And I think that's important. And I would love to, build on that as well and support, other in-house transaction coordinating companies within a brokerage, because I don't look at them as my competition. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm going to train them, they're going to be so good and take all the agents I work for. I don't look at it that way. I think, growth fosters growth. And that's the way I look at it. And I look at it as an opportunity for my business and, to make a name for myself and have a reputation that, hey, this is what they do if you need to get this in order. It could be like a little short-term contract thing. Hey, 6 months, we'll set this up for you. We'll be in and out. And like, that's the future for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Great. That's exciting.
I know.
Very, very exciting. All right. So one last question for you. And I ask this of all of our guests. Tell me about the business book that has been the most impactful for your career.
Well, it's not a business book is the problem.
That's all right.
It's the 4 Agreements.
Mhm.
I really like that book, The 4 Agreements. I would recommend it to anybody who's kind of just looking to find direction and peace and solace in their life, and, you know, accepting things for what they are, and, you know, doing what you can with what you have. So I love the 4 Agreements. I've read it several times. I've given it out to people. You actually just made me think maybe I should read it again because it's been a while. But that's a really important book to me. I think in order to run a business successfully, you have to be mentally and spiritually fit, you know, and that's super important to me, is, you know, making sure I'm mentally and spiritually healthy enough to run a successful business. So staying on top of things like that are important for me.
Yeah. I like it. That's a great book.
It is.
Really
And it's a short read too.
Yeah.
Short read.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Amanda, I am so glad that you were able to come on today and talk with us a little bit about your business. It's super exciting to hear about, and I can tell that you are going to crush your future years in business. And I am grateful to have met you and have you be a part of the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that wraps up another episode of the TC Exchange podcast. Thank you so much for joining me and being a part of this incredible journey through the world of transaction coordination. Remember, every challenge is an opportunity to learn, and together, we're setting the compass to true north. If you want to dive deeper into the world of TCs or simply connect with our growing community, follow us on Instagram at TrueNorthTCT. For exclusive content, insights, and engaging discussions, be sure to join our Facebook group, the TC Exchange. And for resources, courses, and a treasure trove of knowledge, check out our website at truenorthtransactionservices.com. Keep the conversations going, share your insights, and until next time, keep your compass pointing true north. See you soon.